So at the end of my cancelled video games iceberg, I mentioned that there was some unfinished business before I talked about Mario Kart World. As you could probably guess by the hints I provided, that business would be ranking every kart in Mario Kart Double Dash. Originally in my DS video, I said that I would skip over Double Dash since I thought that most of the vehicles in Double Dash were just reskins from one another. However, after receiving comments about it and thinking it over, I think it's fair to make a video ranking the karts in Double Dash to completely rank every vehicle in the Mario Kart series. As for the game itself, Double Dash is easily the most unique game in the series. For one, it's the only game in the series where you must select 2 characters instead of 1. Speaking of which, Double Dash would expand the character roster from 8 in the previous games to 20, introducing many classic Mario characters to the Mario Kart series like Daisy, Toadette, Birdo, the Babies, Diddy Kong, Bowser Jr., Waluigi, and King Boo. This will play a really important part in the game, since depending on your character's weight class, determines what type of kart you get to use. It also plays a part in what items you get, since each character gets their own special item. For example, the Babies have the Chain Chomp, while Bowser and Bowser Jr. have the Bowser Shell, so depending on which items you like the best, determines what characters you choose. Finally, Double Dash allows you to hold 2 items at once, as well as switching the driver's place and item placement, which adds strategy to the game since you decide which items you want to hold and which ones to save for later. Anyway, for the karts in the game, there are 21 in total, with each character having their own specialized kart, with one exception I'll talk about later. Finally, I want to state that when I talk about the stats in Double Dash, I'll be referring to the actual stats instead of the in-game ones, since they go into more detail. With that being said, let's get on to the rankings. To start off our list, as Bieber was caught in Double Dash, we have the Boo Pipes. As you could probably guess by its name, it is King Boo's signature kart, and to be honest, it's easily the dullest kart in the entire series. I mean, the kart design is just grey pipes, and not only is grey a very boring color, but the concept doesn't even make sense, since Boos don't really come out of pipes. For a character that is as cool as King Boo, I would have loved to see more thought put to his kart design. For example, I think a kart based on a coffin or tombstone would actually be really cool, and it fit to the haunted theme of Luigi's Mansion. Stat-wise, the Boo Pops have a very high weight, off-road, and acceleration stats, but also has a very low top speed and mini-turbo stat, making the kart perform well on tracks like Dry Desert and Sherbet Land. Again, there's not really much else to say about this kart, it's just extremely bland and boring for a character that deserved much better. The Piranha Pipes is the signature kart for PD Piranha. It pretty much has the same design as the Boo Pipes, only it's green instead of grey. However, I do think they're slightly better than the Boo Pipes. For one, I think green is a much more exciting color than grey. Also, the pipe design fits PD Piranha much better, since piranha plants do come out of pipes in the Mario games. With that being said though, the Piranha Pipe still kinda has a bland design, since it is just a pipe. So while I wouldn't call it bad, I do think there are better kart designs in Double Dash. Stat-wise, the Piranha Pipes have similar stats to the Boo Pipes, but their top speed and acceleration stats get switched, and the Piranha Pipes also have a lower off-road stat, making it slightly worse for the Boo Pipes statistically in my opinion. Overall, the Piranha Pipes is another kart that doesn't really have anything noteworthy to talk about. The Hot Coach is Peach's signature kart. It resembles an old-timey carriage that is colored pink, while having a heart-shaped hood ornament and a pink heart crystal on the front. Stat-wise, the Hot Coach is fairly average, with its strongest stats being its off-road and acceleration. To be honest, there isn't much more to say about this kart, since there are better carriage-like karts in the series, like the Day Tripper and Wii and the Prancer and 8 Deluxe, but still, the Hot Coach is a solid vehicle overall. Bloop Coach is Daisy's signature kart, and it basically has the same design as Bahort Coach, except the kart is orange instead of pink, and the hearts are replaced with flowers, as well as the gem at the front being green. Yeah, this is going to be a trend in the video, where a lot of vehicles of character pairings are going to be similar and closely ranked together, like Peaches and Daisy's for example. Stat-wise, the Bloop Coach is very similar to Bahort Coach. However, the Bloop Coach's strength is its top speed, as it sacrifices its off-road stat. It's also 1 point lower in acceleration and 2 points lower in weight compared to Bahort Coach, making it slightly worse statistically. Again, I don't really have much to say about this vehicle, as I only decided to put it higher than Bahort Coach since I like the orange color of the vehicle, as well as the green gem slightly better. Green Fire is Luigi's signature kart, and as the name suggests, it's essentially an average looking kart that is green. However, I do like the L emblem on the hood and tire hubcaps, as it gives the kart a little bit of a personality. Plus I find it funny how I can race with this vehicle without having to play as Luigi, and the emblem is still there. Stat-wise, the Green Fire has a high speed stat, but average to low stats everywhere else, with its weakest stat being its acceleration, making the kart pretty average overall. Not much else to say, just a very average looking kart with fairly average stats. The Red Fire is Mario's signature kart and it's essentially the same as the Green Fire, but it's red instead of green and replaces the L emblem for an M. The only reason the Red Fire ranks higher is because red is my favorite color. Stat-wise, the Red Fire is even more average than the Green Fire, as it doesn't have any stat that is too high nor too low. Again, not much more to say about this kart that I already didn't say about the Green Fire, so let's move on. As the name suggests, the Toad kart is Toad's signature kart. Design-wise, it resembles the classic pipe frame of the older games, as well as the standard kart in future Mario Kart games, as it's blue in color and has a red seat and a white bumper. Stat-wise, the Toad kart has a very high off-road and mini-turbo stat, with high acceleration stat as well. However, it also has low speed and weight stats, making the kart quick but easy to bully around. Similar to the last two entries, the Toad kart is another average looking kart. However, it ranks higher than the previous two since I like its design more, plus it also helped inspire the design of the standard kart in future games. Like the last entry, the Toadette kart is Toadette's signature kart. It looks very similar to the Toad kart. However, the Toadette kart is red and has a pink seat and a pink gold bumper. As I said in my Red Fire entry, red is my favorite color, which is why the Toadette kart ranks higher. Stat-wise, the Toadette kart is essentially the same as the Toad kart. However, it would sacrifice its top speed to be very low while it maxes out its acceleration stat. Again, I don't have much else to say, so let's move on. The Turbo Birdo, or as I like to call it, the Gok Gok 3000, is Birdo's signature kart. The kart design is basically Birdo's face, and while it's a simple design, it's also a really weird one. I mean, Birdo's design itself is weird, since they're basically a pink dinosaur that has a large nose and shoots out eggs, as well as other things. And making a kart design off of that is really weird in my opinion. Stat-wise, the Turbo Birdo is actually pretty average across the board, with its strength speed and its top speed and weight, which are very respectful stats for a kart I consider goofy. Usually, I do like the more goofy and untraditional karts. However, something about the Turbo Birdo just goes a little too far I think. With that being said, its wacky design does make it stand out more from the previous karts, which is why I decided to rank it higher. As its name suggests, Turbo Yoshi is Yoshi's signature court, and like Turbo Birdo, the court design is Yoshi's face. While I don't think it's as weird as Turbo Birdo, it's still pretty weird. To be fair, Yoshi Biking 8 Deluxe is also based on Yoshi's design. However, I don't really have a problem with that vehicle, since his design is based on Yoshi's rideability in the many Mario games he has appeared in. But here, it's just Yoshi's face, and like I said in my DS video, I think making a cart based on a character's face is kinda lazy. Like imagine if it was a cart based on Mario's face, it would just be really weird in my opinion. Stat-wise, Turbo Yoshi has similar stats as Turbo Birdo, but Turbo Yoshi would focus more on acceleration instead of top speed. It would also take away 1 point from Turbo Birdo's weight stat and put it into its off-road stat. While I would have preferred better cart designs for Birdo and Yoshi, there is something pretty uncanny about both of their carts that I do find pretty amusing. Plus they do stand out more from the previously mentioned carts, which is why they rank higher. The Rattle Buggy is Baby Luigi's signature cart, and it's essentially a green baby stroller. I really like this cart, as it makes sense for it to be a baby stroller, since well, they're babies. I also like the smiley flower on the side of the cart, being a reference to Yoshi's Island. However, I do think the light green on the Rattle Buggy is a little too bright in my personal opinion. Stat-wise, the Rattle Buggy has very high off-road, acceleration, and mini-turbo stats, but low top speed and weight stats, making the cart similar to the Toad and Toadette carts. Besides my critique of the cart being a little too green, the Rattle Buggy is a solid vehicle overall. We're now in the top 10, and this is where the carts start to get good. The Goo Goo Buggy is Baby Mario's signature cart, and is essentially the same as the Rattle Buggy, except it's blue instead of green. Which I honestly like better, since not only does the blue look better than the green, but it also fits the baby aesthetic better, since light blue usually is a common color for baby boys. Stat-wise, the Goo Goo Buggy is virtually the same as the Rattle Buggy, except it takes away 1 speed point from the Rattle Buggy and puts it into maxing out its acceleration stat. While I would say this cart is the best baby themed vehicle in the series, since I do really like the multiple designs of the booster seat in Mario Kart Wii, the Goo Goo Buggy is still pretty good overall. The Koopa Dasher is Koopa Troopa's signature cart. It should be no surprise that I really like this cart, since I'm a big fan of Koopa Troopas in general. I mean, the cart is basically a giant green Koopa shell, which I really love. I also like how the wheels have a shell design, which I think makes the cart look unique, as well as the K emblem on the front of the cart and on the hubcaps, which for some reason reminds me of the Turtles belts in the 1980s TMNT series. Stat-wise, the Koopa Dasher has very high off-road, acceleration, and mini-turbo stats, but low top speed and weight stats, so basically the same as the other lightweight carts I mentioned. Overall, the Koopa Dasher is a cart that has a pretty cool design and surprisingly balanced stats for a lightweight cart. As its name suggests, the Wario Kart is Wario's signature kart. It's basically a purple muscle car with Wario's mustache on the hood. Anyway, when I was doing research, I discovered that the Wario Kart actually originated in Wario Land 4, and has continued to appear on several other occasions, which I think is a really cool detail. Stat-wise, the Wario Kart has a high top speed and weight stat, but low off-road, acceleration, and mini-turbo stats, making the kart fairly average in my opinion. There have been other muscle cars in the series, like the Brute in DS, the Flameflyer in Wii, and the Bad Dragon in 8 Deluxe. While I would say that the Wario Kart is as good as the Flameflyer or Bad Dragon, it's still a really cool homage for the Wario series. The DK Jumbo is Donkey Kong's signature kart. It's pretty much a giant barrel, which for DK I think makes sense, since bells do play an important role in the Donkey Kong Country series. I also like the details on this kart, like DK's emblem being painted on the front of the barrel, as well as the wheels being finely cut wood and logs. Speaking of which, I also really like the polished wood texture of the kart, which I think has aged really well. Stat-wise, the DK Jumbo has similar stats as the Wario Kart, with 1 point being taken away from the Mario Kart's off-road and acceleration stats, and the DK Jumbo put it into its top speed and weight stats instead. Not much more to say, just a pretty nice kart design that does a good job of representing Donkey Kong. The Pararing is Paratrooper's signature kart. Its design is very similar to the Koopa Dasher, except it's red instead of green, and it replaces the K emblem with a P. It also has rings on the side to represent Paratrooper's character. Like I said previously in this video, red is my favorite color, so it should be no surprise that I ranked it higher than the Koopa Dasher. However, with its rings on the side, I think it enhances the kart from one that is good to one that is great. Stat-wise, the Pararing is very similar to the Koopa Dasher, except the Pararing takes away 1 speed point from the Koopa Dasher and puts it into maxing out its acceleration stat. Overall, the Pararing is another well-designed kart based on the Koopa shell, but with a few simple design changes, easily elevate it from good to great. The Bullet Blaster is Bowser Jr.'s signature kart. Its design is basically a bonsai bill with a yellow rotor for an exhaust pipe. While the design is simple, I think it suits Bowser Jr. well, since it's both intimidating and kinda cute at the same time. Stat-wise, the Bullet Blaster has a very high top speed and mini turbo stat, along with an average acceleration stat, but also has very low off-road and rate stats. Taking a slightly different route from other lightweight vehicles and becoming more of a glass cannon in my opinion. Similar to the last entry, there's not much more to say about this kart, except that it does a good job of representing Bowser Jr.'s character. As you could have probably guessed, the Waluigi Racer is Waluigi's signature kart. It's also my favorite medium weight kart in Double Dash. Its design is somewhat similar to Mario's and Luigi's karts. However, the Waluigi Racer has more flair to its design, as the kart resembles Waluigi's nose, as well as having black strands on the side that resembles Waluigi's mustache, which I think adds a lot of personality to the kart. I also like the deep purple color, as a star common color for karts in the series. Stat-wise, the Waluigi Racer has a very high off-road stat, with the rest of its stats being pretty average, which makes the Waluigi Racer one of the best karts statistically in my opinion. Overall, the Waluigi Racer does a great job of representing Waluigi's character without having to be as obvious as Yoshi's and Birdo's karts. It also has pretty good stats as well, making it a pretty great kart all around. The Parade Kart is easily the most unique and interesting kart in Double Dash, since it's the only kart that doesn't have an owner. It's also a kart that doesn't have a designated race class, meaning every character in the game can race with it. The Parade Kart also reminds me of the gold standard in 7 and 8 Deluxe, since not only are both karts a solid gold color, but they're also unlocked after mastering the game. With the Parade Kart in particular being unlocked after getting first place in the Mirror All Cup Tour. The Parade Kart also plays an important role in the award ceremony, as Toadsworth would carry the winners in the kart, which I think is a really cool detail. Due to its unlock method and its role in the award ceremony, I'd actually say that the Parade Kart is better than the gold standard in my opinion. Stat-wise, the Parade Kart has high top speed, weight, and mini turbo stats, along with an average acceleration stat, with only its off-road stat being low, making the Parade Kart really solid statistically. The Parade Kart is just a better version of the gold standard, since its unlock method is a lot funner, it also has a cool role in the award ceremony, making it a fun final unlockable in the game. The Koopa King is Bowser's signature kart. It is my favorite heavyweight kart in Double Dash. I mean, the design of this kart is basically a mechanical Bowser, and I love the details that was put into it. From the sharp metallic teeth in the front, to owl-like headlights and sharp horns. That's of course not mentioning the orange hair on the front and the spikes on the wheels, which combined together makes this a badass kart in my opinion. Stat-wise, the Koopa King has very high speed and weight stats. In fact, the Koopa King stands alone as the fastest kart in the game. However, it also has very low off-road, acceleration, and mini-turbo stats, meaning that it performs well on straightaways, but not many other tracks. While the Koopa King lacks in many stats, it still has a really intimidating and badass design. However, there was one kart that I thought just had a more creative and funner design. For my favorite lightweight kart in the game, as well as my favorite overall kart in Double Dash, we have Diddy Kong's signature barrel train. It's very similar to the DK Jumbo, but the design is much more funner. I like how the kart uses its train aesthetic, from the smokestack on the top to the red cowcatcher in the front, as well as its train-like wheels and the green platform in the back. The kart also has a star painted on the front and stickers on the side to represent Diddy Kong's character, which I think altogether makes this a really fun kart. Stat-wise, the Bell Train has high top speed, off-road, and mini-turbo stats, along with a very respectful weight stat for a lightweight kart, with its only low stat being acceleration, making it another solid kart statistically. Like I said in my Mario Kart 7 video, this version of the Bell Train is a very fun and innovative kart, and what I think can be considered one of the best in the entire series. So we've reached the end of the video, and I thought the kart quality in Double Dash was interesting to say the least. The top half of the list has some really solid karts, with the top 5 in particular being great. However, the bottom half had karts that were either average at best or very boring at worst, being a mixed bag overall. I think the problem with Double Dash's karts is that there's not really a lot of variety with them. Like with character pairings, most of their karts aren't really different from each other, as they usually have the same design but with a different coat of paint. But there are a few pairings that do have unique kart designs, like Bowser and Bowser Jr., as well as Wario and Waluigi, and because their kart designs were different, they easily stood out from the other karts in the game and were in the top 10. As for where Double Dash's karts were ranked compared to the kart selections in the other games that I've talked about, I think Double Dash has the worst selection in the entire series, closely behind 7's. I decided to give the edge to 7 since they only had 4 karts I thought were kinda meh, instead of the 10 in Double Dash. Also, 7 did have some nice variety to their kart designs, with some even coming back on multiple occasions. With that being said though, I still enjoyed looking at the karts in Double Dash since it is a very unique game that I honestly haven't played much of. Plus Double Dash was the first game to introduce selectable karts, so I can't be too harsh on it. Now that I finally got done reviewing the karts in Double Dash, I can now start to talk about Mario Kart World, which has been a somewhat controversial game early on to say the least. Anyway, I'll talk more about the good and the bad of Mario Kart World in my next video. So until next time, Koopa out.